Because of quarantine, a lot of us have had to shift from working at the office to working at home, which means that our work setups might not be ideal, and so we might have developed some pain or stiffness either in the mid-back or neck region. So in this video, we'll go over a couple different exercises that we can do while we're at home to help mitigate some of the pain and stiffness that we feel in those two areas. It's important to know that while we talk about posture and how maybe important it is, there's no ideal posture that we actually want to be in throughout the day. So it's not shoulder blades back, pulled together, neck tucked, and just being in this position all day long. We're actually meant to be dynamic, so we should be moving throughout the day. And so if you slouch for a little bit or you sit in that rigid posture for a little bit, both of those are okay, but we just want to try to incorporate movement throughout the day. So while these 5 exercises are ones that I personally like, it's really up to you on picking what exercises work for you throughout the day. If you want to spend 5 or 10 minutes every hour just having a dance party to kind of clear your head, great, do that. Or if you're someone who has to set an alarm and go, I'm going to do 2 or 3 of these exercises, what's important is that you're actually just doing a movement and you're not just sitting for a prolonged period of time, especially in one position. So the first exercise is a banded pull apart. And so while typically you'll need an exercise band to perform many of these exercises, you can actually do them without a band, although I find them to be much more beneficial if you have a band. And so also when we talk about bands, I usually like to use a little bit heavier of a resistance just because I feel like it gets a little bit more muscle activation, but use whatever you have at home. And so for the banded pull apart, what we'll do is we'll take the band and we'll have our palms face up. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to pull apart, squeeze those shoulder blades together, and then slowly come back. And so typically I recommend doing about 10 reps or so, but it depends on you. If you want to do 5 reps every 30 minutes or 10 reps every hour, again, the more important thing here is that we're just moving. If you find that the band that you have at home is not strong enough, you can actually just double it up. So instead of just going with the one band here, we can actually just fold it over. And this way it'll give us some more resistance, just challenging those rhomboid muscles on the back a little bit more. So we'll do the same thing, palms up, and then just pull apart, squeeze those shoulder blades together, and then slowly come back. A variation of that banded pull apart exercise that we just did is actually a very similar one, but we'll actually take a mini loop, or if we just have one of the longer bands, tie it into a little loop. And so for this one, I'll actually wrap the band around my wrists and then bring my elbows to about at shoulder level, and then we're going to pull from here and then slowly back. And so the reason why I like this one is because it actually gets a little bit more of the backside of the shoulder. So it gets the infraspinatus and teres minor muscles, which are the rotator cuff muscles on the backside of the shoulder, along with getting the rhomboids in between the shoulder blades. So it kind of works a couple of different additional muscles as opposed to that banded pull apart. But pretty much everything stays the same. Try to keep your elbows at shoulder height and then just pull as far as you can go and then slowly come back. The second exercise is a diagonal pull apart, and it's very similar to the banded pull apart that we did, but we're actually going to work in a diagonal plane, so we're working some different muscles. So we'll work the lats and some of the trap muscles as well. And so for this exercise, the starting place is that we're going to have our thumb up, grabbing the exercise band, and then our other hand is also going to be thumb up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pull across our body in a diagonal pattern, and then slowly come back. And so it's very similar to that banded pull apart, just we're in a little bit different plane here. And so again, we'll do somewhere between 5 to 10 reps depending on what you're comfortable with and what your job schedule is. And then once we've done 5 to 10 reps, we'll switch directions, same thing, thumb up, and then we'll pull across our body just like so as well. The next exercise is a standing row, and so these can actually be performed seated, but if we're sitting all day because we're working at home, I like the standing row just because it makes you stand up. And so I just have an exercise band anchored in front of me, and so we can anchor it into a door or a piece of heavy furniture or something like that. And so it's a very simple exercise. And so what we'll do is we'll take the band and we're just going to pull so that our elbows are in line with our body and then slowly come back. and then just repeat that motion. And so when we're actually squeezing and pulling, we want to squeeze those shoulder blades together so we're getting rhomboid activation, and then slowly come back. And so to increase the resistance, we could just grab a little bit lower on the band, so we're shortening the band and then pulling there and then coming back. And so one technique thing when we're looking at the row is that, especially if you're experiencing shoulder pain, we only want to bring our elbow in line with our body. If we end up going past, it'll put a little bit more compression on the tissues on front of the shoulder, which can lead to some irritation. And so if we're just pulling in line with our body, then we should be avoiding a lot of that compression on the shoulder, if that's a concern for you. If we don't have anything to anchor a band to, or we just don't feel comfortable with that setup, we can still do a standing row, but we'll need like a backpack or a briefcase or something like that we can add a little bit of weight. And what we'll do is we'll stand with a staggered stance. We want to try to keep our spine in neutral when we do this. And so typically I'll put like some textbooks or something in the bag just to add a little bit of resistance. And then what we'll do is we'll just take our arm here, pull up so that again our elbow is in line with our body, and then come back down. And so we can do this for 5 to 10 reps and then switch sides. And again, we want to work on squeezing those shoulder blades together so we're getting that rhomboid activation at the top of the movement here. The fourth exercise is for the deep neck flexors, which are on the front of the neck. And so it's a good way just to kind of activate these muscles. It looks a little bit awkward, but it's a great exercise. And so if we take a look at posture and what we typically deem as bad posture, that we'll have our head kind of forward and it'll just elongate these muscles on the front side of the neck. And so that's why I like chin tucks, because it just helps to activate those muscles on the front side of the neck. It also helps get us out of this position where we're just in that elongated position for a long period of time. So to perform the chin tucks for the deep neck flexors, we'll lay on our back. And so there's a couple of different progressions that we can take with these chin tucks. The first one is that we'll actually just try to look down towards our feet without lifting our head up off the ground. And so what it'll look like is we'll tuck our chin, and so I'm trying to look down towards my feet. And so in this position I should start to feel a little bit of activation of those muscles on the front side of the neck. And generally we'll hold this position for somewhere between 10 to 15 seconds and then repeat for multiple repetitions. The progression is to actually lift our head up off of the ground. And so what we'll do is we'll start in that same position of tucking our chin, and then we're going to roll our head off of the ground like so, and then hold this position here. And so I should feel that activation of the muscles on the front side of my neck. The way that we don't want to do this is that actually lifting our head up like this, because it'll activate the SCM muscles, which are the big muscles on the side of the neck, and it won't actually activate the deep neck flexors as much as we want them to. And so instead of just picking our head up off the ground like this and holding here, we want to roll our head off of the ground like that. And the final exercise are floor angels, or we can do wall angels as well, but I'll start by showing a floor angel first. And so what we'll do is we'll lay on our back again on the ground. And so again, there's a couple of different variations that we can do. We can just pretend that we're making snow angels here. And so we want to try to keep our low back pressed against the ground, so that way we're focusing more extending the mid back versus the low back. And we'll just take our hands palms up, and then from this position we'll just make a floor angel, trying to keep our hand and our arms on the ground all the way up. Try to go up as high as you can go. Again, trying to keep that low back pressed against the ground so that we don't arch up. And then just slowly back down. And generally the breathing for this is that as we come up, we'll take a deep breath in. And then once we get to the top, we'll breathe out through the mouth. And so obviously we're all a little bit stressed out during this time, during the pandemic, so this is also just a good idea just to kind of help with any stress, just kind of helping us relax a little bit. And so the variation from this is that instead of actually doing that full snow angel, is that we can pretend that we're basically a cactus. And so we'll just have our arms up like this, and then we'll just lift our arms up up above our head, and then back down, trying to keep our elbow and our hands down against the ground. It's okay if it comes up a little bit, it's just something that we'll have to work towards, trying to keep our arm and elbow down on the ground. And so like I was just saying, we could do these up against the wall as well. I generally like to do them on the floor though, because it gives us a little bit more feedback and it helps us to press that low back against the ground and keep it on the ground while we're going through the movement. But we can also do them up against the wall as well, and everything pretty much stays the same. So we want to push that low back against the wall so that we're extending through that mid back. We'll have our palms facing out, and then what we'll do is we'll just lift our arms up overhead, try to go up as high as we can go, and then come back down, breathing out, and then repeat. So we're just trying to keep our hands up against the wall. It's a little bit harder when we're standing, but do the best that you can, and then just kind of work towards keeping your arms all the way against the wall throughout the whole thing. And like I said at the beginning of this video, these aren't the perfect 5 exercises, they're just the ones that I like the best. And so if we want to incorporate different exercises to kind of get us moving throughout the day, that's great. If we like to do a couple of these exercises, awesome. Or if we like to do all 5 of them, even better. It just depends on what works for you. And so if we can do these every 30 minutes, every hour, the idea is just to kind of incorporate some sort of activity throughout the day, especially while we're working from home. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. If you want to see more of my content, you can hit the subscribe button down below. And if you want to be notified of future videos, hit the bell icon as well. I'll see you guys in the next video.